Well, folks, this is your old buddy, Alan Lester Halcomb from Gordon, Kentucky. I'm going to put Gordon, Kentucky back on the map if I have to bust doing it. Well, here's my first story. Is the name of this story is The Day After. Okay, I was 11 years old. It was on a Saturday, and I learned how to swim. For the first time, I could just take off and swim all I wanted to. Well, Sunday morning, Saturday evening, this was in July, I dug me a can of worms, and I was in to go fishing the next morning, Sunday morning. Well, I took off down the road to the fishing hole. There's a big cliff, and one place is you had a crack you could crawl through and get out over the water and be up over the fish and everything. And but I was still about half asleep, I guess, and wasn't thinking much of it. And the side of the cliff, like this is the cliff, there was a ledge on it, and you could slide down and stand on that ledge and be closer to the water. Well, all the rain and stuff, it come a big flood. I mean, it was big and muddy. I was determined to fish, and I dropped the first bait down, and zoom, it was gone. I said, well, I can't fish. I'll just go back home and go to bed, get some more sleep. And I was standing on that ledge, and you had to turn your feet sideways to stand on the ledge, and so you wouldn't fall into the water. Well, I took one foot off, and I turned around to get back up the cliff. I slipped and fell, me, fishing pole and all, went straight down in that flooded creek. I went under. I finally hit bottom. I kicked real hard, and I popped up. And boy, was I swimming. Was I ever glad that I knew how to swim. I swam out to the other side and saved myself. But the funny part is, I never did turn loose of my fishing pole. Because good fishing poles were hard to come by. So, it surprised everybody else in the family. They didn't even know I was up and gone fishing. I come in looking like a drowned rat. Where you been? Where you been? So that's a good story about you need to learn how to swim. And the very next day after I learned, just to let you know how important it is to swim, the very next day after I learned, I needed to know. And another story is, you've heard on TV, you've seen it, and you've heard about it, flash floods. Well, now I've been in two. I'm an eyewitness to two flash floods. The first one was in Kentucky, and it was at the same place where I fell off the cliff. It's the same hole of water. And it was late in the afternoon. The sun was getting ready to set, and I was going to go try and catch a big bass. Well, I was fishing, and I got a bite. And while the fish was biting my bait, I heard a noise coming down the creek, louder and louder and louder, just like 10 army tanks coming at you. And just all at once, about 5 or 6 feet high, here come the whole creek from one side to the other was like a beaver dam coming right at you. Trees, logs, everything. You couldn't imagine. And all the muddy water behind it. Well, I had a fish on the hook, and I put my line back to the side and climbed up on some high ground, and all that trash just went by, boom, one big noise, and it was gone. And I waited about 15 minutes. Here comes some clear water. Everything settled down. I could not believe my eyes. Where did that come from? It hadn't rained where I was at all day. Well, all the trash and everything went by, and I got to cranking on my reel, see what the fish was doing, and I realized that I set the hook, and I realized it was a monster, big, and I got all excited, and the line got tangled up in my reel, and I had a 15-pound test line, and I just got a hold of the line and started pulling that fish in. I pulled it up on the bank. I'd never seen a smallmouth bass that big in all my born days. I jumped on it with both hands, ran home to show my mother. And it was 17 3/4 inches long. And as far as I know, it's the biggest smallmouth bass that was ever caught in that creek, in the history of the creek.
Linefork Creek.
Linefork Creek, 2 miles down the creek from Gordon, or it'd be east of Gordon, really.
When was that? How old were you when you did that?
Well, I was 18 years old. 18, yeah. And
did you ever figure out what caused the flash flood?
Never did find out. I didn't know of any lakes or dams or anything. Some of the mining companies would dam up a creek, a branch with trash, and maybe that broke loose, but I don't know whatever caused it. Darndest thing I ever saw, the awfulest noise you ever heard.
Yeah.
And it was moving fast. I mean, faster than a dog could run. Boom! It was gone. And then the other flash flood was in Randolph County, Indiana. I was fishing.
Wait, when was it?
It would have been somewhere in around 1970, 75, somewhere along there.
Where were you at?
In Mississinewa River at Ridgeville.
Okay.
And right in behind the
ballpark?
Downstream from Ridgeville a little bit.
Okay.
But I was like a 2 mile up. I crossed the bridge and the river was clear. It'd been raining some. And I went down and started fishing, and just got started fishing. I heard a big noise coming like army tanks. I knew what it was. Here it come. You never saw so much trash, logs, trees, limbs, and the awfulest noise. And here it was coming right at me. I could see it just real close. And as hard as I could, I ran across the river and got up on the bank on the other side. And by the time I got on clear land, boom, it all went by. Just in the snap of your finger, it was moving so fast. And if I'd have hesitated 10 seconds, I wouldn't be here telling this story. So I've been through 2 flash floods, and it's the scariest thing you'll ever go through.
Yeah. I could see where you'd be scared and standing there and whoosh.
Oh, yeah. And it happened so fast. I mean, seconds, not minutes. I've got 5 minutes. That thing's moving slow. It's moving at about close to 50, 60 miles an hour when these flash floods come through, all that trash. Looks like a beaver dam coming at you.
Wow.
Yes. And if you don't know how to swim, you better. Here's a fishing story. I always wade the rivers and fish for smallmouth bass. And on this one trip, it was me, Thursa's husband, Albert Nunley, his son, Keith Nunley, and my son, Ted. We all went up at the Ridgeville ballpark and walked back to the river. And I was going to go do some fishing. And we got back there, and I told Albert, I said, now, Albert, just above a big hole of water. The water wasn't too deep and all of this, and kind of a narrow strip. And I said, now, if you fish that right there, you'll catch you a big bass. Oh no, he knew all about fishing. He didn't want to fish. He wanted to fish that big deep blue hole of water where the big fish was at. I said, no, Albert, the big fish are up here. They was fishing and they wasn't even getting about or nothing, and just all at once I hooked into a big smallmouth. It was just fighting and going and carrying on, and I caught a couple of them right there before they could turn around. I said, see, boys, I told you where they were at. And from that time on, everybody learned to fish the upper end of the hole of water. Now that's during July, August, and September. And those big ones were up there waiting on food to wash down the rapids, and then they'd run out and grab it. And so...
Yeah, they don't just lay around in those great big ponds.
They're up there waiting on food. They get the first pick of the food that comes down. Yeah. And that's just a fishing trip I wanted to tell you about. So this is still old Al and Lester Halcomb from Gordon, Kentucky with a new story. Bye.